Patty, hi.
Hi.
Welcome. I'm so glad that you are here today.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Excuse me. Patty Saeed, and you are from the New England Cognitive Center, and it's located in New London, right down the street from New Lawrence Memorial Hospital.
That's right. We're about a block down towards the beach.
Oh, that's a nice location.
Yeah, it's lovely.
Okay, so tell me about New England Cognitive Center.
Well, New England Cognitive Center, we have been for the last 20 years developing cognitive programs, and especially looking at Alzheimer's and dementia. But we've broadened our scope over the years, and so these are programs. They run in small groups, so it's nothing to do with medication. We run it in small groups, and what we attempt to do is to systematically stimulate the 6 major cognitive areas of the brain. So it's like a whole brain workout. It's like when you go to a physical gym, you need to work your whole body to keep it healthy. The same is true of the brain.
Oh, I'm sure. And what are the 6 cognitive centers of the brain?
Well, there is, one thing we work on, which isn't really a center, is reaction time. And reaction time is important because it's kind of married to processing speed. And so as we get older, things tend to slow down, including, the way we process our thoughts and do problem solving. And so we know that since reaction time is married to processing speed, if we can get reaction time up, it will hopefully increase processing speed.
How do you do that?
We have a series of activities that are that just move faster and faster and faster and faster. Because really, with reaction time, there's no thinking involved.
Right.
It's like if a ball rolls out in front of your car, boom, you automatically step on the brake. There's
Right.
not a lot of thought, or if the light turns red in front of you. Now, when we're dealing with people with Alzheimer's and dementia, or sometimes traumatic brain injury, I mean, we deal with a large number or category of types of cognitive loss, but sometimes reaction time slows down, and so you'll see more car accidents. So a lot of the activities we have are around traffic. So,
Interesting.
But that's the first thing that we do.
So tell me, is that like a simulator, like in those driver's ed classes I took back in the day?
Because everything is done in small group. We don't do it on the computer.
Okay.
Because of that, we think that social interaction is really, really important.
Of course.
And people begin to support one another, and they see, oh, it's not just me that may have issues. There are other people, and so the small group works extremely well.
It normalizes everything. It normalizes.
Absolutely
You're
does.
a little slow. I'm a little slow, and then there's somebody a little bit faster.
But you might be a little slow in one area, and I might be a little slow in another area, and then when we're working, oh, well, I help you, you help me, and by helping each other, we're helping ourselves.
It's like playing ping pong or tennis. Okay,
Yes.
So then processing is one. What's the next one?
Visual spatial, and that's where we are in our environment and where other things are located so that, you'll see sometimes people reach for something and miss, or sometimes people will accidentally swipe furniture. And so
When they're walking,
it's
you mean?
spatial orientation,
Okay.
basically. The next comes concentration and attention. Now, this is extremely important because, a lot of people will say, oh gosh, I'm starting to have memory problems. I put my keys in the refrigerator, or I can't find this, or I couldn't find my car. If there's no disease, or if there's no diagnosis, and this happens to all of us, let's face it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many times I've lost my car and I just go around. But it's not because we don't remember. It's because we didn't pay attention to where we put it in the first place.
Exactly.
Or we get distracted. And so attention and concentration, you have to be able to attend, to be able to focus, to be able to concentrate in order to remember something.
Exactly.
So that always comes before any kind of memory exercise that we do. And everyone is worried about memory. I'm worried about my memory, and rightfully so. Our memories carry. It's like it carries our life, our lives, our families, all the events that are important. And so. But everyone's concerned. So sometimes we say, well, we have memory programs. But memory is one aspect. And the thing is, there are many different kinds of memory, so we can't work on all of it. What we try to focus on that really sets our programs apart from many of the other ones is that we don't look at just long-term memory, like when were you married and do you remember this Frank Sinatra song and things like that. What we look at is the memory network. Okay, so going from short-term memory to, can we hold it for, 24 to 48 hours, and then can we move it to long-term memory? So we're looking to keep that memory pathway open. So it's not just long-term, it's not just short-term. And if your short-term memory goes, and that's what happens, and it could be from any number of causes, okay, damage to the hippocampus or stroke, but if the hippocampus isn't working right and the memories aren't moving along, they're not getting stored, then they won't ever end up in long-term memory. And so, is it important what you ate for breakfast this morning? Probably not.
If I'm talking to my doctor or dietitian,
then
or
it
nutritionist,
is. But it
for
is
the most part,
important that you remember that, did I take my medication?
Right.
Did I lock the front door? So, that short-term memory, it's important to be able, because it just moves it along. Short-term memory lasts about 20 seconds. Its purpose is to get that information in and move it down the line. And so we work at the whole, and then there's different types of, other types. There's visual memory and verbal memory and auditory memory, and those are just to name a few. So we take the most important ones, visual memory, auditory memory, verbal memory, those three, and we try to focus on those throughout the memory activities.
Okay. So we talked about processing, visual, spatial, concentration, and then
memory.
Memory is number 4, right. And then what would number 5 be?
Number 5 is language.
Oh, language.
Yes, and what we focus on a lot is word retrieval. Those words that get stuck on the tip of your tongue,
right.
And then they don't get free until you don't need them anymore.
Why is that?
Yeah, and as we age, it seems to get worse and
right.
worse and worse. But we need language.
Of course.
The last category is problem solving. It's basically the prefrontal cortex of the brain, but it needs the whole brain. But unless you have language, you really can't think,
right.
and you can't solve problems, and you can't make decisions, and you can't make judgments or understand consequences. And so there's the specific order that we've come up with, and this is the order of all the programs.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
But it seems to work, and I think that's why we're getting the kind of results we're getting, the very, very promising results we're getting.
Tell me about your results. That is so exciting. I'm so happy for you.
I came out of academia. I was a professor and an university administrator for about the first 20 years or so of my career. And so when I moved into the not-for-profit world, into this type of programming and program development, I needed to know, I didn't want to release any programs or anything out into the world unless we knew that there was some kind of benefit for people.
Of course.
It's not about making a fast buck, it's about can we help people? And, and we started out, can we just hold people where they are right now?
Right.
Okay, we never ever anticipated that we would get improvement. But how do you judge that? Okay, well, you
pre
have
and
to
post
have
test, right?
Pre and post test, but we didn't want to do it ourselves. So we have
an outside evaluator.
We have several, and they're university researchers.
And what a great opportunity for the research aspect of it for the university.
Absolutely. So they're independent. They give me the good news and the bad news. They're not paid at all. They can publish, which is gold if you've
for
been
them,
an academic,
because
yes.
You're doing all of the labor, the field work.
Well, they do a lot in terms of the testing, but our programs now, we have 5 levels of programs ranging from normal healthy to severe cognitive loss, severe Alzheimer's, severe dementia. And these programs are, there's at least a dozen of them spread out across the United States.
You're across the United States. You're not just in New London.
We're not just in New London. The programs are moving across the United States. Some of them are affiliated with universities because these universities are doing things in the community. Others are not. We have all the way from South Dakota, Minnesota. There are 4 4 programs in Michigan, New York, Arkansas. And so we decided that it's time that we start delivering, instead of just developing the programs and doing the first trials here, we decided, you know what, it's time that we start delivering these programs to our community here in southeastern Connecticut. And so we are going to be starting, right now we're taking private clients,
Wow.
individuals. I spoke with a couple of physicians earlier, well, actually last year, and said, this is what we're planning to do. But I didn't say we'd started yet, and all of a sudden we're getting referrals. And what are you going to do? Say, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to deal with, no. And so we've started a little bit before schedule taking individuals, and what we're doing now is we're going to be organizing, so that people can come into these programs, into the groups at multiple levels. Which is really, really exciting because, the whole purpose of our not-for-profit is to be able to help people who are dealing with cognitive loss. Can we make your life better?
Right. Well, and you always hear people say, I'm having a senior moment. And it's fine to have a senior moment, but then you need to have some retrieval strategy, right? And then
That's
to be
right.
in go ahead.
Yes, and then when there's a diagnosis like Alzheimer's or dementia or MCI, mild cognitive impairment, or post-stroke, people with Parkinson's disease and muscular sclerosis often develop cognitive memory problems. People who are have been through or going through chemo brain. So we've worked with all these different types of people. And the really exciting part about the research is the researchers have really focused on Alzheimer's and dementia. And what they're finding is what we started out initially to do. We wanted to see if we could stabilize people and hold them. We knew that we couldn't hold them forever. This is not a cure at all, but it's a tool. It's an instrument. It's a way to fight back and
Absolutely.
give people more time. And also to give people a way that they can help themselves. If you get a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, the doctor will say, well, here's your prescription for this med and try to stay mentally active. How do you do that? We know how to do that.
Right.
And so we were just hoping for stability, and the latest studies are showing a great deal of stability. But even the first preliminary studies showed some improvement.
Oh my goodness, that is
improvement
amazing.
with Alzheimer's, improvement with, and nobody really believed that, and now they're starting to. But we're getting, and it's not across the board, but it's gradual, and some people have even jumped up a level. Where it's very, very exciting.
It's thrilling.
And we were invited to one of the study sites, the research sites in Minnesota, because Minnesota State University and Dr. Jeffrey Buchanan, they're really the lead researchers in this. If you've ever heard of the NUN study, which was one of the first big studies ever done, it was done in a convent in Mankato, Minnesota, and that's kind of become one of our little laboratories.
I love that.
It's really cool. It's and it kind of brings things full circle. Here's what we some of the things we learned about the brain in these studies, and then we're coming in and, all right, can we slow cognitive decline? Can we make things better? And then we have a program for what we call our Normal Healthy group. And this one is probably the most popular program because it deals with the same kind of setup, the same format. But if you're experiencing those little memory glitches, or if you have lost your car too many times in a parking lot, this is a program that will it's called Mind Sharpener.
Mind Sharpener, I like that. Instead of a pencil sharpener.
There we go.
Yeah.
And so that is right now the highest level of program, but it's really funny because in the sites where that's running, when the people finish the program, they want more. And so I keep getting calls from, especially the sites in Detroit saying, we need a Mensa version. We need a higher version.
I love that.
So I have to develop programs for myself now.
Oh, wow.
And there are really some very nice side benefits. So for example, all of these are conducted the programs are delivered by trained trainers. We train them. And we have a pretty robust training program.
How long does that take to be trained?
Well, if you're running a program, we can get you trained in a day and a half, but we're there, we're in and out. But the really neat thing is that if you're training, if you're running a program,
You learn. You benefit.
it has a positive cognitive impact on the trainer.
Whatever you teach, you learn
yes,
better, right?
Yes. So, you know, sometimes when we were doing more trials, I would say, oh my gosh, I can't find my words. My word, oh dear. And I'd go and run a program and it would get better. And then I said, you know, we need to test me. We need to test the trainers and see if there really is some cognitive improvement. And sure enough, there it was. And for me, it was in language, but it was also in, I think, the concentration. Because I didn't lose my cars.
Well, and you're so busy. You have so many things
that's
going.
the
Your
thing,
brain
too.
is going
Yes.
a myriad of
Yes.
places
Yeah.
simultaneously, probably.
Yes, and just developing the programs is you know, it's a very good cognitive activity
Of course.
for me.
Well, I wanted to ask you, I know my mother was very sharp up till the very, very end. She lived to be 95 years old, and every month she would learn a new poem, and she would learn to recite that poem, and she became she was always very good at that. But then there were other things that kind of slipped. So talk to me about that, because sometimes people say, well, I do the crossword puzzle every day. Is that enough?
I do a lot of public speaking, and
Okay.
at almost every session, every time I go somewhere, someone will come up to me and say, well, thank you for your work, but I do a crossword puzzle every day, so I think that's going to help me and maybe stave off Alzheimer's and dementia. Well, it's really good to do a crossword puzzle every day. There's no harm in that, and there's potentially some good. But the thing is, people who do crossword puzzles tend to like to do crossword puzzles, tend to do well. It's something that they're good at, right? And so they're not getting a lot of cognitive stimulation. The brain needs to be challenged.
Okay.
Okay. And so what I tell these people, and so I'll ask them, well, do you like Sudoku? Oh, no, I don't like to do with numbers. I say, okay, that's what you need to do then, okay? And the brain loves novelty. It loves learning new things, okay? And you know, your mother was really right. You know, if she practiced and kept her memory strong, however, I mean, reading is good.
But then remembering what you're reading and probably being in
able
a book
to discuss
discussion
it.
group,
Okay,
right?
yes.
That's important.
So you can, you know, TV is kind of a mind number, but if you discuss what you've watched, it makes it better.
Exactly.
And so what we try to do during the course of our program is to show people these different cognitive areas of the brain and to help them learn ways that they can, once the program ends, that they can continue to stimulate them. It's not a perfect process yet, but it's not just, and a lot of people just go towards language, the word jumbles and the crossword puzzles, but it's because they're good at them, and they're good at them, you know, they like them because they're good at them. So you need to push yourself to learn to do new things. We don't like, you know, the people who don't like to do Sudoku probably aren't very good at it, and that's why, but you know, if while you're solving it and you're getting better and better, your brain's, you know, you get that little reward, ding, 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 makes you feel good.
And you feel it in your brain almost,
So,
don't you?
Just like, you know, with physical fitness, a variety of exercises is important. It's the same thing with the brain.
I like to do the cryptic quotes. I find those extremely challenging. And
There you go. And you're looking for challenge. The important thing with our programs is that it's necessary that people are cognitively, mentally challenged. But we have to be careful because we can't make them too hard. When frustration or stress, you know, steps in, learning stops.
it has to be within reach.
It has to be within reach, but there has to be a little challenge,
Stretch,
you know.
yeah.
So someone comes into our program and they're getting everything right and da 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 da, and then we have someone who's struggling a little bit over here. Guess who's getting the best cognitive workout?
The one who's struggling, not the one
struggling.
who's succeeding.
That's right.
Great, okay. So tell me, I would imagine veterans would benefit from this kind of programming?
Absolutely. I mean, anyone who has any kind of cognitive issues, memory loss from any, you know, so veterans could absolutely, you know,
Teachers, after all this,
after all the years,
the stress of working in
teachers make the best trainers.
Oh, I'll bet.
Yes, you know, because what, you know, I came out of education. I mean, and teaching, and that's what I love. That's what this job kind of lets me continue to do. But what I realized, you know, about 25 years ago, they were saying, well, people with Alzheimer's and dementia, they can't learn anymore.
And that's not true at all.
How is that possible? Because our ability to learn and to adapt to situations is one of the basic survival skills.
Exactly.
And then, I was in some memory units where, people had advanced Alzheimer's and people who had terrible strokes. And they might not have remembered my name, but I could see that they recognized me, and some of them could go and find their rooms. And how is that possible? So I didn't buy into that.
No.
And basically, everyone talks about neuroplasticity, that the brain is plastic and we can change it. How does that happen?
By continuing to
learning.
give, right?
It's
yes.
learning, So my background in education just fit in beautifully, and I just refused to learn that people, who had some of these problems couldn't learn anymore. And couldn't we retrain them? If you learned it once and then damage wasn't so significant, couldn't you learn it again?
Well,
so it's really relearning, and that's what we're seeing.
Well, and what I'm thinking too is that so many people say, I can't remember your name, but I was never good at names. And they don't have a strategy to remember someone's name. With me, I'll repeat the person's name and I'll make some kind of an association with your name. Oh, it looks like this or it sounds like this. And I'll usually have them spell it. So I have my own little built-in strategy to try to remember.
And the strategies as we age, or if there's any kind of cognitive problem, are really, really important. There's nothing wrong with having a strategy. The funny thing about names, though, it is one of the hardest memory tasks for us, for humans.
Why is that?
Because think about it. We have this group, if someone has a really strange name, it's easier to remember, right?
Right.
But we have this group of common names. How many Marys do you know? Carols, Joes, Mikes, right? But everybody has an individual face.
Right.
And so we have this individual face, and we're trying to put this common name on it. It would work better if it were the opposite. So it's one of the hardest things for us to do.
So is it good to name your baby? Just wondering. Yeah,
it's a possibility.
So if you want them.
Yeah, but a lot of people are concerned about that. Oh, I can't remember people's names. But it's one of the hardest tasks. And so if that's important to you, then you focus on that and say, all right, so how am I going to remember this name? I mean, a lot of our husbands just say, what was that? We are their memory helper with names.
Well, that's nice when you go to cocktail parties or places, events.
Where they have the name
tags.
Right.
And
or if you're at a meeting, they have the name, the tent tables there for
who signed in.
And yes, things like that,
Yeah.
absolutely. The other thing people are really, really worried about as they age is that they keep saying, I'm so forgetful. And it's not, again, the long-term stuff. It's I'm getting more and more forgetful. There's, but the thing is, if you think about it, is that the brain needs to forget. Okay, it's you
get tired, right?
It needs to. If you think about it, the information that comes into the brain comes from our five senses, right? Now, if we remembered everything that we saw, we felt, we touched, we smelled, we heard, we saw, if we remembered all of that for every minute of every day, we would just have a brain full of cognitive garbage. And it's happened to a few people. They've seen that. Okay. So the brain has to decide what to keep and what not to keep. Okay. And so as we get older, it just, that concentration isn't there as much. And so, we might have a little slippage. But you need to be able to forget. So I tell people, well, you're just getting much better at that skill. And if you work on, improving your memory, then you can balance things out. Because think about it, when you're 20 years old, you don't have as many memories stored as when you're 60 years old and 70 years old. If you think about memories as being files in a file cabinet, I mean, our drawers are much fuller at this time in our lives than they were when we were children or when we were, when we were young adults. So we have a lot more that we're carrying around also. So forgetfulness is, it's a part of life.
Well, you don't want to remember everything. There are certain.
No, we don't want to remember everything, but those are the things that are hard to forget.
Oh, that's
because,
true.
And that's basically because the things we want to forget have an emotional component. There's memory for facts, and and we have an emotional memory. It's a separate memory system. It is mature at birth. And that's why they say, hug your baby, cuddle your baby. They won't remember the details, they won't remember the facts, but that feeling will be there. Well,
my daughter just had a baby, and she's 6 weeks old now, and she just is so alert and looks at you, and she recognizes my voice already.
Yes, that brain is learning. I have a 7-month-old grandson, a 7-week-old grandson, sorry. And
So they're
he's
just a
starting
week
to
apart.
smile and he's watching everything. And it's just amazing to watch the brain. But that emotional memory is really important.
Absolutely.
From that time. But also, if something, tragic happens to us or bad happens to us, it gets cemented in, as we're older, when we're older, because our memory for facts and events is mature around 3 years old. If you think back, what were your first memories? It's usually around 3. But if there's an emotional component to it, be it good or be it negative, because the emotions are involved, that memory is much, much better set in your brain. So your wedding day, for example.
Oh, you can remember the smell, you can remember the breezes in the air.
Yes, because it's so important.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Or sometimes too, you'll be in a place and they'll, for some reason, this feeling comes over you of joy or something else, and you wonder, well, why is that? And it could have been a scent, maybe the cookie scent that your grandmother made, and you won't be able to pin down what it was, but all of a sudden you'll just feel a little different, and that's that emotional memory in play.
It's so fascinating. The brain is so fascinating.
It is very, very
so
fascinating.
Cognition and cognitive is all about the brain, is what I'm understanding.
Well, the functioning of the brain.
Okay.
Okay, so how it works and how we think and how we remember.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I heard that you've gotten some awards. Is that true?
Yes, we got a couple of good national awards from the American Public Health Association, and then from, we have a MetLife Mind Alert Award that we got in 2013. And this is while we're still developing the program. So, that's very, very exciting. The most exciting thing that's happening right now is that we have a brand new program. It's for early cognitive loss, so early Alzheimer's, early dementia, MCI, and our programs run 3 months. We meet for an hour twice a week, and that time is really, really important. Well, we have this brand new program, and we are inviting people, because it's the final trial before it goes nationwide, right? We're inviting people to come in and to participate in the trial program.
Oh, people would love that.
Absolutely free.
Free?
Absolutely free.
Free, and you learn, and you get to be with a bunch of people who are fun and loving and hang out and do
right?
fun
and
activities.
There'll be a little pre-test and a little post-test, and you can hopefully, see on the numbers. The numbers are important, but a couple of things. First of all, we know, even people with Alzheimer's know, when when there's improvement
Slipping.
or when there's decline,
Right,
especially.
right.
So, but usually 2, 3, 4 weeks in, people are starting to feel a little bit different.
A little perkier, huh?
Yeah, a little perkier. And then when we see with our people who have more severe cognitive loss, it's not just the cognition,
Social decline is what I'm imagining.
It's more than that. It's more than that, because hope is restored, and they're feeling better about themselves, and they're starting to fight back, and their quality of life is improving, and the quality of their family's life is improving, because they're able to do something, and they're able to see, oh, I can still do that. It's not about what you can't do anymore. It's about, oh, look, I can do this now.
It's the next chapter.
And then relearning.
And what you're
yes.
going to be doing.
Absolutely.
And how you
then
can approach
hopefully
it.
holding back
Yes.
the tide.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, well, we just have a couple of minutes left. So how can we support you? You're a nonprofit, so
well,
tell me.
Any kind of donation is great, but we don't. Our hands are not out. The most support, I think, that 2 important things right now. So if you know of anyone who's interested in participating in the trial for early cognitive loss, early dementia, early Alzheimer's, MCI, please have them contact our office.
Okay.
Because we're about halfway full now.
And how many do you need?
We have a maximum of 10.
Okay.
We can run with 6, but if we need to, if there were enough interest, I would open up a separate second section of it. So that's really important. So get a hold of us very quickly. The other thing is, if you know anyone who has cognitive loss, dementia, Alzheimer's, MCI, who's suffering from memory loss from post-stroke or
post-traumatic stress.
Parkinson's disease, muscular, the cognitive
Anything, right.
problems that can sometimes come. Then let them know that we exist. That's our problem right now. We've been so busy developing, nobody knows we're
little
here.
outreach.
Yes, and here we are in southeastern Connecticut with world-class programs.
Love it. Do people need to be able to transport themselves to and from your center?
Yes.
Okay, so
yes.
that's going to be one thing.
But the senior centers in the area sometimes are fabulous. We have people coming in.
From Waterford and New London, maybe East
yes.
Lyme, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, absolutely, The other thing is if there are any sites, if there are senior centers and they have enough people there, we can go there and run a program.
Lovely. Very nice. Thank you so much, Patty.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you.